Welcome to the intersection of Black culture and horticulture with your girl, Colah be talking. And guess what, y'all? We Black in the garden. From WABE Studios, welcome to Black in the Garden, the intersection between Black culture and horticulture, hosted by me, Colah be talking, the hostess with the mostest. Welcome, soil cousins, to a special episode of Black in the Garden. We're going to get into some real-time things that are very relevant to what's happening in the world today, diving into a conversation that has sparked some deep reflection and engagement across social media. Recently, I shared my thoughts on boycotting, consumer activism, and the power of self-sufficiency. And I got very real, very honest, and vulnerable. And the response was overwhelming. Y'all had a lot to say. So I'm going to take a moment before we go any further, and I'm going to actually read what I shared in that post. Times in poverty taught me how to bake vegan when I couldn't afford eggs, grow food to stretch EBT, buy secondhand when I couldn't afford new, and clean house with baking soda, vinegar, and citrus peels. It's like I trained for long-haul boycotting. Poverty forced me to be resourceful, but I didn't realize then that I was building a skill set for resistance. I learned to repair instead of replace, repurpose instead of discard, and be grateful for what I have when retail therapy was not an option. Survival taught me what capitalism tries to make us forget. There's always another way, and we got food at the house. Okay. When you're broke, you get creative. I made my own oat milk before it was trendy. I swapped what I grew for what I needed and even figured out cloth diapering because disposables were out of the question. These weren't just budget hacks. They were lessons in resilience and self-sufficiency. It was resistance by default. By now, I see how these survival strategies connect to environmental justice, mutual aid, and economic autonomy. Hyperconsumption keeps us trapped in a cycle of waste and dependence on systems and corporations that don't serve us. So what if we broke up with it, consumed less, wasted less, and reclaimed our power? The mindset shift we desperately need starts with how we consider these questions. So that's the post. And the response was huge. And clearly the idea resonated because that post got over 11,000 views just overnight. That told me that I needed to take a deeper dive on the podcast to expand on the conversation. So today we're going to do just that. I believe this post took off because so many of us are feeling the tension between what we're told about our economic power and the reality of what actually changes things. The question isn't just about how we spend our money. It's about what comes next. How do we shift from just reacting to building something of our own? To help unpack this, I'm honored to be joined by one of my esteemed colleagues from WABE, Julien Virgin. Julien is an independent multimedia journalist currently doing amazing work for WABE, capturing the voices of everyday people and documenting the stories that shape our culture. He got his start as a producer and host at WRAS Atlanta, where his show, The Wave, blended underground music with community storytelling. I love that. Since then, he's worked across radio, news, and live events, always bringing an authentic and insightful lens to his reporting. And he's nice on the ones and twos. Julien, welcome to Black in the Garden.
Colah, I'm grateful to be here this morning.
I'm grateful to have you. I know you asked me before we got started what I was grateful for, and I said I'm grateful for you. Your insights, everything that you've been doing leading up to today, and your understanding just as a journalist, very valuable. So I can't wait to have this conversation.
I'm grateful for the platform, and also you just even putting that out into the universe, just being vulnerable. And with the post, I thought the post was very insightful, and I think the reason why so many people engaged with it is because it was real.
Period. I appreciate that. I just recognize that everybody like to talk about how well they're doing, but nobody want to really talk about like, I was po. Like, so Julien, I've considered myself uncommonly rebellious since I was about 22. That was actually my MySpace handle. I've always questioned the status quo, but lately I've been thinking more deeply about what resistance really looks like. And I'm sure you've been thinking about it as well, especially with so many conversations around boycotting corporations that are happening right now. So you want to kind of dial us out and catch the listener who may not know. I hope y'all know a little something, but catch up the soil cousins on how we got here.
Absolutely. So on President Trump's return to the office, first day, he signed a slew of executive orders, essentially rolling back a lot of the DEI standards that were put out there by the Biden administration. And with the president's executive orders, a lot of corporations that we shop at daily decided to start rolling back a lot of those DEI standards as well. Mm-hmm. And that is having a influence amongst a lot of consumers, consumers that look like me and you, and different consumers everywhere that just need those opportunities that will no longer have access to those. Mm-hmm. And so as we've seen here recently, amongst social media, a lot of people have been talking about boycotting, having days, blackout days and whatnot. And so I guess this question is really out there, and people are asking of ways to boycott and do things differently now that we're seeing a lot of these corporations truly play their hand and follow the president's executive orders.
Yeah, and it's particularly frustrating and leading to a lot of like emotionally charged conversations, because these aren't just corporations that we don't care about. They're corporations that we feel kind of like personally attached to. One example, Target, like that. People took that very personally, because it's, when we think about how we consume in America and being over consumers, unfortunately, which is part of this conversation, we recognize that we create these bonds with these brands, these corporations. We have rituals where we shop there, and we tend to do the most, but we're going to get there. So we're in a moment where corporations are rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and policymakers are actively undoing hard-won progress.
In this conversation, I think it's like, we do become attached to a lot of these corporations. At the same time, they are corporations, and this is a capitalistic society. And at the end of the day, it's the dollar that makes them make certain decisions.
They are definitely influenced by that. So the thing is, we've been conditioned to believe that success means having more. More money, okay? More success, more status, more convenience. I know a lot of this is tied into convenience, but that kind of success keeps us tied to systems that don't serve us. Hyperconsumption being what I'm thinking about. The constant cycle of buying, discarding, and replacing funnels our dollars into the very institutions that exploit us. It's a cycle, basically, right? And what's wild is that the same corporations are rolling back DEI. Even corporations that have been very vocal and very intentional about how they have been supportive of Black-owned businesses and bringing them into their establishments to help them gain economically. And they're the same ones that are making money from our spending habits. These corporations, it's wonderful to have the Black-owned businesses in those corporations, but it's like that's kind of another way to hook us in.
One, I think I would pose the question, are we surprised? It's very performative when these companies come around for Black History Month, or they come around when there is a tragedy that is affecting our community on a national standpoint. Mm-hmm. It's reactive marketing, because it is to get our dollars, I would argue. When the president does make these adjustments to a lot of these DEI rollbacks, I would question whether or not I'm surprised at it, because again, it's a lot of antics. And so I think that goes back to how you so eloquently described in your op-ed, just about how a lot of the music that we listen to is also kind of promoting this consumerism that we have as a culture.
Indeed.
And even with these DEI rollbacks that some of these companies are making, do you think that the companies are still banking on us as a community, still spending our dollar with them and actually joining together to make a difference?
They know that they have us. They know, like, just the emotional connection, the outcry to certain corporations rolling back DEI initiatives versus others was not the same. So that's what told me that this is a matter of people's personal preferences and how hurt they were about one rollback versus somebody else's.
And I think we also have to be honest too. DEI, it affects certain people, but it doesn't affect others. If you already are doing what you're supposed to do and you have meritly earned your position and where you're supposed to be, I might not think that I need a DEI standard in order to get to where I need to go if I'm already in that space.
For sure.
So that might not affect me, and I might just continue to go to Target because I could go there, but it might affect somebody else differently. And a lot of times, I think we should be honest about it. There's a lot of outcry just in the moment, momentary outcry.
For sure.
And then the next day, it's like the news cycle. Something else will come up. And so I would argue that a lot of these companies are banking on consumers to forget and continue to shop. This might just be a temporary thing. And even like the announcement of, hey, this company's rolling back, this company's rolling back. It's just an announcement. And then, 6 months from now, will people matter, or do I still need to go get this product from this store that rolled it back? Are we still going to shop at online on different organizations that have had these rollbacks? And so I would say, one, I'm not surprised. And two, I don't have as much faith in people that they are going to stop doing what they're so used to doing, which is consuming.
So I want to go back to what you said about music and so many of the things that are a part of our culture that influence us. And we can't talk about this without bringing up hip hop. Okay. Hip hop has shaped global trends. It's redefined what luxury looks like and influenced how we see ourselves. And let me be clear. I love hip hop before anybody say I'm trying to come for it, because this is hard for me to even really dissect, but it's a must. It's one of the most powerful forms of Black expression. We're telling our stories, our struggles, and our joy through that medium. But at the same time, we have to be real about how consumerism has been weaponized against us.
We do have to be real. And I hate to talk about things just as a whole, right? Yes, hip hop, maybe in the mainstream, it's very consumer based, right? But we have to look and see the corporations that are putting out a lot of this music. They are there to sell us a product. Yes. And that product that is in front of us all the time is normally selling products. How many rappers do you hear mention brands and things that you had no clue of before you start seeing now everybody's wearing the Cartiers or the Balenciagas and this and that and the Gucci bags and X, Y, and Z. And so there is a level of programming in that as well. For sure. And I don't want to say all hip hop is doing that, because there are hip hop artists that are talking about things that matter. We just saw a whole battle between Kendrick and Drake. Precisely about what was real and what was, consumerism. Yeah. And so I don't want to talk about hip hop as a whole. However, I do understand what you're saying, that the hip hop that a lot of times that we are consuming, or that is put out on different radio stations and you hear a lot in different placements, that is consumer based hip hop. And they are talking about my watches, my chains, my cars, the clothes. And it's something that, yes, as young people, you do get influenced by, because if you don't have a standard that is out there, or a role model that doesn't look up to that, or doesn't embody that doesn't embody that, we don't have anybody else aspire to be. J. Cole says it all the time. It's like, the most of the people that we see are either ball players or rappers. They have a microphone in their hand. And yeah, it is tough as a young person to be influenced and to kind of like differentiate that. But I think as you get older, and with platforms like this one, when we're able to just have conversations and be the people, be the change that we want to see, you start to see that. And so, yes, we do see it in hip hop. What do you think? Do you think that it is overpowering, or do you think that hip hop could turn and maybe make us a little bit more self-sufficient?
I know that it can. I know that it has. Just as much as there is messaging that promotes hyperconsumption, there are other artists with more like a counter narrative that are really getting into, self-sufficiency. I'm thinking about KRS-One. I'm thinking about Dead Prez, and they are absolutely encouraging us to think about what really matters.
Yes.
I'm thinking about how you indicating that these rappers are mentioning a lot of brand names and stuff. It's like there's commercials in the music and then after the music. So it's all coming back to the same space. I'm thinking about how those corporations study our culture. They co-opt our aesthetics. They profit from the desire that hip hop helps to shape. Meanwhile, the Black farmers, the landowners, and the community builders who create true generational wealth rarely get the same glorification. When was the last time you saw a Black farmer being glorified?
I couldn't mention it off the top of my head. However, that is, I would argue it might be by design, right? Because if you could sell us stuff via the music that we see all the time, that we consume via our phones via sports, and you know, it's easier to sell us on that versus us being able to return back to our roots, get black in the garden,
period,
and be able to sustain and be self-sufficient. Because again, there is a benefit to us consuming all that. Like we do make up a large spending block, and that's why we do see those social media boycotts, and people, they want to, you know, let it be known and make a stand that, hey, we could, as a community, use our buying power or show them what our buying power is if we sustain for this one day. However, do we have the will and the fortitude to sustain for more than one day, for an extended period of time?
So I want to clarify one more time, because I can't emphasize enough. I am not demonizing hip hop. We're not demonizing hip hop. We can see the counter narratives, obviously, but it's about recognizing that consumerism has been used as a tool to keep us consuming instead of investing in self-sufficiency. So if we're serious about resistance, then we have to rethink not just where our money goes, but how much we even need to spend in the first place. That's a big concern for me. When I was coming up with the words that I ultimately shared, my initial inspiration was, it's not that we need to find other places to spend. We just need to stop. We don't have to buy all this stuff. What if the real power move isn't just withholding dollars, but reducing our reliance on the system altogether?
I think that would be beneficial. And I'm gonna kick a question to you. At what point in time in your discovery of like, hey, like I'm being a lot more self-sufficient, at what point in time did you realize like, well, maybe I didn't need all this other stuff? Well, it might be a struggle at first, but then you realize it's like, oh, like when did the light bulb go off for you?
I love that question, and I thank you for posing that to me. I think it was pretty quickly. It was the way that things were not coming together, more like falling apart. So my experience with poverty, I don't know if I mentioned this already, was not as a child. I did not grow up in poverty. I grew up in a pretty sheltered, stable home where, you know, economically we were fine. It was a military family. I experienced poverty as an adult when I mixed with a partner who was not providing in a way that was sufficient while we had very small kids. So I'm a stay-at-home mom trying to stay home, not because it's some cute, glamorous thing to do, but because we can't afford daycare, you know, and that's a systemic thing, but we're not here to talk about that so much. But when I recognize something like, I can't afford diapers, it wasn't that I couldn't buy them at all. It's just, it was too much of a strain to keep buying them over and over again. So I had to consider the alternative, cloth diapers. And so to answer your question more so, I just kind of realized convenience, right? That's what disposable diapers are about. I'm not trying to throw no shade on them brands or nothing like that. But at the same time, if you look at the statistics for what the landfills are full of, it's a lot of them in there. So like, let's just make that clear from the sustainability aspect. But when it came to me recognizing I need to figure out another way, it was naturally, what is the sustainable alternative, which is something that allows me to reuse the diapers. And so to answer your question in like where that light bulb came on, I recognize, oh, okay, well, cloth diapering is not what it used to be. And there are like cute ones. There's actually community here with people who understand that cloth diapers are reusable. And so there's a community of people who are swapping them and educating moms on, or caretakers rather, on how they can use the cloth diapers. So for example, I'm glad that came up.
No, so I think it goes back to the question in which you pose. It's like, how at what point in time do we make that switch? And I think as you just so eloquently described, it's about your experiences. Sometimes we do have to hit rock bottom in order to realize like, okay, I might need to be a lot more clever with how I'm utilizing my resources.
For sure.
And I feel like Black people have always done that, whether it's been, we got to make these, we got to use these chitlins because that's the only thing that we have to cook, and we have to prepare that, and we have to make the best of what we have.
Sustenance.
You have to do what you have to do with what you have. But I don't think that as a whole, and again, it's hard to talk about people as a whole, but you have to go through some things in order for that light bulb to come off.
For sure.
And so I think the more that we experience, the more that we see in different administrations and how different laws are enacted and how they're enacted and how other people follow, that light bulb will continue to go off. And when people just feel it and they experience it, they'll find alternatives.
I'm thinking back to when I first started growing my own food, and that was another part of the realization that you were asking me about. It wasn't just about making a statement. It wasn't just about, me trying to figure out how to deal with plants, but I definitely was trying to lean into another way. So in some sense, it was survival, but looking back, every tomato, every collard green, and every okra pod that I harvested was an act of defiance. I didn't know that when I started gardening, but I appreciated when I realized that shortly after. And it reminded me of how Black folks have always turned to the land. Like you said, we've always had a relationship with the land. We've always been able to grow and cultivate, and turning back to it at this point in time is a means of liberation. I'm thinking about Fannie Lou Hamer and how she understood that very well. She grew up impoverished. We've already done an episode on Fannie Lou Hamer discussing how food insecurity was so serious for her. For example, that when her mother just was trying to get something together, sometimes her meal would be scraps from, how you cut the dirt and the stuff off the carrots and the beets. It would be that. That was her meal. A little piecemeal of something like that. So she definitely understood that. And when I started to dig into those connections between the civil rights movement and gardening, that's how I learned about Fannie Lou Hamer. And I'm always proud to share more about her and her Freedom Farm Cooperative, because what Fannie Lou Hamer saw was that political rights did not mean much if Black people could not meet their basic needs.
Absolutely.
So through collective farming, Fannie Lou Hamer built food security. She built economic opportunity and created a model of independence that still holds lessons for us today.
I appreciate you educating us about that in the op-ed too, because it was real. You have to be a good steward of what you have.
For sure.
In order to get more.
Indeed.
And I think it kind of goes into the whole conversation we've been having. Instead of always having to reach out and go buy more, like we just need to just be good stewards of what we already have. Be grateful for what we have, even if there might be a hole in our clothes. Let's get creative and learn a new craft and know how to tidy that up real quick with a
little needle and thread.
With a little needle and thread. Let's get back to the roots of it. Let's get Black in the garden.
Yeah.
And forgive me for earlier mentioning the chitlins, but it still was it was an example of how
it's a good example.
People have always been resourceful with what they had. We may not have much, right? But we do have each other. And we got brains, we got good sense, good knowledge, and we could, continue to put that together as Fannie Lou Hamer did, and just, show that, hey, we can get back into our gardens. As you said, plant your okra, plant your tomato. With every tomato, you are forming that level of resistance, and each one reach one.
I'm telling you, and give them a tomato.
And give them a tomato. Break bread together.
Because if you've ever had a good tomato harvest, you might have enough to share. So it's important to mention that gardening is not just about food. It's about autonomy. This is what we're talking about at this moment. It's about knowing that if supply chains break down and grocery prices skyrocket, we've seen that happen before. We've seen what's happening with the price of eggs. If corporations refuse to honor our humanity, we should still be able to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming a practice that capitalism and systemic racism have tried to strip from us, turning it into a form of empowerment rather than oppression. And I say that because there are so many people who I've come across in my journey as a gardener, Black people, who, have expressed disdain to working the land or being outside gardening, because it is still connected with that form of oppression from when we were what I call involuntary gardeners, when we were enslaved. But beyond just gardening, the same spirit of resourcefulness applies to so many aspects of our daily life. Making your own cleaning products. I had to figure it out. Vinegar.
Clothes gotta get clean.
Citrus peels. Let it sit for a little while, and next thing you know, you clean it up and it smells good. Making your own cleaning products, learning to mend clothes instead of buying new, fixing that little hole that you was talking about, cooking from scratch instead of relying on processed foods and drive-thrus and all these convenience type of products that are on the market. All of these are small and tangible ways that we can step outside of the consumerist cycle. You see, I just mentioned a bunch of things that were not big shifts, but if you just incorporate a few of those, small changes make up to big impact, And so all of those ways that I just mentioned are all ways to live in alignment with sustainability, with mutual aid, and economic self-determination.
You just mentioned too, like, utilizing your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And I think in order to utilize your neighbor, you got to be a good neighbor.
Absolutely.
You got to be a good neighbor. You can't expect somebody to help you out if whenever you see them, you don't say hello.
Come on.
Like a hello goes a long way. A smile. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Good to see you. You never know. You might need that egg. You might be cooking in the house.
Know.
You might need that egg real quick.
Yeah.
I can call somebody.
You might need that salt.
And nowadays, again, I don't want to generalize everybody.
And I get that. I appreciate
that.
But
as time has continued to grow, the pandemic has happened. Technology has dominated a lot of our lives now. We're kind of getting away from the personal touch and just leaning on your neighbor for something. I might need some flour or something. Mm-hmm. And so that's an act of resistance as well, is utilizing what you have in your community, what you already have, and utilizing those people in your community too, because somebody might have a skill that you don't have, but you could still benefit from, and we all working together for the greater good of everybody here. Again, each one reach one. It starts with you. That's what I just took from what you just mentioned, and us being resourceful with each other.
I'm going to reflect that back to you because you mentioned speaking to people, right? I'm going to connect this all together to how we even got here in the first place with you joining me for this conversation. You come through the WABE studios and speak to everybody that is a part of your job. And so as a result of you being friendly and extending yourself to say hello to me one day, we had a really wonderful, organic, quick conversation, but I understood this is somebody who I can talk to. This is somebody who, once I figured out that you were a journalist, I was like, okay, this is great. And then I'm figuring out how to get this episode together and recognizing I need an expert here. I want to talk to somebody who can really, help me unpack this from your journalistic point of view. And so I was able to say what I said on the thread and then recognize, oh, shoot, we should take this further in the conversation and reach out to you personally to say, hey, Julien, how do you feel about joining this conversation? What do you think about what I shared? So I thank you again.
I appreciate that. I'm going to, my barber would always tell me when I was younger, you reap what you sow and your soul is the seed. So you just got to continue to just plant good seeds around there. You never know, there might be an opportunity. And I do hope that I was able to shed some journalistic light on the conversation of a lot of these DEI rollbacks. Yes. And just make sure it's accurate, because again, you are hearing a lot of different information out there. Yeah. And these are just executive orders. But again, we're seeing how it is trickling down to a lot of these corporations, and these are, we're having a fruitful conversation about ways that we could kind of get back to the roots.
So here's the thing about self-sufficiency. It doesn't mean going at it alone. You've touched on it several times, the importance of relying on each other. Black communities have always survived through collectivism. Haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so through bartering, through teaching each other skills, through sharing, through looking out for our neighbors. You just described how you got here. Tell us how you got here.
So I took the OK Taxi to work today. The OK Taxi is a local taxi company that services a lot of our Latino community along this Buford Highway corridor. It's cash only, Spanish speaking. And I think that is a great example of how certain communities are able to operate, especially among a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right now, you're seeing a lot of attacks on immigration.
Yeah.
And that is a community that is under attack, right? Let's be clear about that.
For sure.
That's a community that's under attack. However, that's also a community that has been subjected to a different treatment than their counterparts, and they've been able to sustain with each other through collectivism, and they've, an example is this OK Taxi. This is how a lot of people get around to and fro work. strictly cash. They don't take cards.
Yeah.
Because that there's a level of privilege in that too. Us using our iPhones, Apple Pay, credit cards, debit cards, checking accounts. There's
all
a level
electronic because you have to set up for that.
You got to set up. You have to have forms of identification, residency. You have to have a lot of that, and some of our neighbors here in our community, they don't have that, and sometimes we take that for granted. But I think the OK Taxi and our Latino brothers and sisters along this Beaufort Highway corridor can definitely speak to that communal aspect. They might come from different spaces, but they share some things in common. It's like, look, we over here trying to survive, and they've built that system within their community, and I love to support it.
Yeah,
it's great, and it gives me an opportunity also to learn a little Spanish and whatnot. And
such a good example.
Yeah, and spend some time.
The most important thing to consider is rebuilding the sense of interconnectedness is just as important as any individual act of resistance. Community gardens, seed swaps, co-ops, and mutual aid networks are modern-day expressions of what our ancestors always knew. Mm-hmm. We are stronger when we pool our knowledge and resources. So imagine if more of us took the time to plant food together. What if we taught each other how to preserve and prepare that food? What about creating alternative economies that allow us to rely less on the systems that are failing us? And that's not just sustainability, it's power.
I don't want to generalize and act like these things are not already happening.
Right.
People are already coming together. People have these things built. I think it's incumbent upon us to, some of these organizations that are rolling back on some of these things, just take our dollars and just invest into somebody who is working every day to sustain that Black garden. That's working every day to bring people together, to show people how to cook, to show people how to plant, to show people how to sow, because those things are happening. Those are a lot of the stories that we're telling in the WABE newsroom.
Yeah.
And these are people that do need that support. That same amount of shine that a corporation would give one company is the same amount of shine that we can give the people in our communities, and so they can continue to build up whatever business they're working on, idea, brand, and that is a form of resistance as well. And we see that going back to me talking about this OK Taxi in the Latino community. You've seen these organizations be able to come up to be able to sustain and help their community that needs the help at the moment. And we should throttle back our need of a lot of these corporations. And I think that we should start investing that time and that energy and our resources into the things that we are doing on the ground.
That is brilliant. That is exactly what that is the conclusion I would want us to arrive at in this kind of conversation. Basically, because I understand that some of us, I mentioned retail therapy, some of us feel an urge to shop that we can't necessarily explain. So first of all, sit with that.
Yep.
Figure out where that urge is coming from. But as you're exploring that urge and determining what to do in place of running out to go and spend at a company that you feel is safe enough to do so, you could be investing into your neighbor's business that could help the community, that can help you in some kind of way. Maybe it doesn't help you. It's not always about you. But, helping out someone who otherwise would not have gotten that assistance.
And even, I think in life, we all operate off of whiffums. What's in it for me, right?
Yes.
You can get, it's a barter system. You mentioned it earlier.
Sure.
It's about bartering. It's about utilizing our resources in order to get to where we all need to go. And if we continue to invest our dollars into things that we feel are benefiting us, not working against us, I think that we'd be able to all, that we sow some good seeds, we all able to bear good fruit.
I almost started clapping. Thank you so much, Julien. So we're actually wrapping up right here. This conversation has been incredible. You're incredible. I appreciate you sharing your insights and helping us to connect the dots between consumerism, resistance, and reclaiming our power. To all my soil cousins listening, I hope this episode sparked some thoughts and maybe even some action, definitely some action. Whether it's planting a seed, rethinking where your money goes, or finding ways to support your community outside of the system, just know that every step counts. Julien, thank you again for being here.
Grateful for the opportunity. I appreciate your time.
Yes. Let the folks know where they can find you and keep up with your work. You're doing some very important work.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Always. JulienVirgin.com. I also work inside the WAB newsroom, so we're on WAB News. We are pushing to get our news onto a social platform so that a newer audience, people that are consuming their news socially on different platforms, can continue to digest the news in a digestible way, in a short form manner. So make sure you follow us at WAB News and at Julien_Virgin. That's Julien with an E, not an A, and Virgin as in Virgin Marys. And I got to give a shout out to my mama. We talked about investing into what we got going on. Yeah. I wear all my mom's jewelry. You see it on my wrist, on my neck.
That was the first thing I noticed when I saw you, was your necklace.
Organite. My mama made it and by Pebbles. And yeah, I would say that's also a form of resistance. My mom, she makes pieces. She does it with her heart. Yes. She and I love to invest into her, and always, whenever there's a microphone in front of me, always make sure that I'm shouting out my mama and making sure I'm wearing her pieces loud and proud.
I know that's right. You better make your mama proud and shout out her business. I love that. And I will be getting me some from your mama. We're going to talk offline about that.
Thank you.
So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for rocking with me and Julien today on this episode of Black in the Garden. Make sure that you are subscribing. Share this episode with a friend. You need to share this episode with a friend, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's keep this conversation going. I want us all to stay rooted, stay resisting, and keep growing. Until next time, we want to wish you all love, light, and soil. Make sure you stay tuned for our watering moment with Plant Zaddy.
All right, plant fam, it's that time. We don't just water plants around here, we water ourselves too. So lean in, take this in, take a deep breath, and let's do what it do. Let's starve the system, because remember, anything that isn't fed will eventually wither away. We've been conditioned to believe that consuming is power, that what we buy, what we wear, what we own is a measure of our worth. But let me tell you something. Real power isn't in what you consume, it's in what we create, what we control, and what you can sustain without permission. So let's be clear. It's not that we don't want to work together. That's the lie that they love to tell. They, and we all know who they are, don't want to work alongside us. They've spent centuries making sure our resources stay fractured, our opportunities stay limited, and our communities stay dependent on systems that were never designed for us to thrive. And if you're playing a part in that, if you are benefiting from Black culture but refusing to pour back into Black communities, check yourself. The system thrives when we feed it, our dollars, our attention, our energy. But what happens when we stop? When we grow our own, build our own, invest in one another instead of corporations that exploit us? We starve the system. And anything that isn't fed will eventually wither away. This is not just about boycotting. It's about breaking free, about understanding that true wealth isn't found in brand names or price tags. It's knowledge, in land, in community, in the ability to sustain yourself, regardless of what's happening around you. So ask yourself, are you feeding the system or feeding your future? Because trust and believe, one of them is always growing. Choose wisely. And as always, plant fam, plant more and worry less. Plant Zaddy out.
Audio talk.
Ain't it?
Audio talk.
In it.
You gotta know it.
That's the other one I use a lot. In it.
In it.
I love in it.
Without the audio guy, it's a wrap.
Love, light, and soil. We're reaping good deeds, enjoying all the spoils. Rooted in the land way back where it started. When we were black, in the garden.
Black like the root of my hair, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. Hey, yeah, black like the root of my hair. I'ma go what I eat in the garden where I be, yeah. WABE.